It's an absolute pleasure to have you all here with me. Welcome back to another episode of Unpacking with Coach Kohn. Today, we're going to be continuing our conversation on removing the mask. But I'm going to focus on something today that's a little bit of a transition. So, essentially, what we've covered over the last month, and if you've been with us over the last month, what you've been hearing is really this very detailed understanding of how to unpack and then treat trauma. And really, this process is what we all must go through to really understand who we are, why we are the way that we are, and then gain back control of our life. What I'm touching on today is a perspective and an idea for those of you that have grabbed this concept of how to treat your trauma, and you understand that you must go back to the root of that trauma. You must go back to the original pain. You must go back to the original lie, and then you start removing things from there. And underneath all the lies is your authentic, inherent, valuable, lovable, enough self. All of that being given to you, there's another perspective to this that I really want to inform you all about. And that's when we go out into the world having done our healing, or while we're working on our healing, we tend to have a sense of expectation. Even prior to you being healed, even prior to you being on this journey, your expectation has been the number one source of all of your pain and stress and anxiety in your life. Outside of your original trauma, your expectation is the root of your pain. It's not the circumstances in your life. It is not the people in your life. It is truly your expectation. Somebody's thinking, okay, well, way to start the conversation. Big Red, I love that name and greeting. Abundant rising to you. So let's start here. Expectations are the invisible contracts that we place on people, situations, and ourselves. These expectations are often the root of our own pain and our own disappointment. Oftentimes, most of the pain we experience in our life come from unfulfilled expectation. We become attached to the desired outcomes, and we lose our peace when the reality does not align with our desired outcome or with what we envisioned. So today, we'll unpack how expectations are often tied to our need to feel safe and in control. But in reality, even though we're holding on to these expectations, believing that if I can anticipate, or if I have an expectation of what is supposed to happen, I feel a sense of safety. Even though we hold on to that, the reality is the expectations rob us of freedom. It robs us of joy. By letting go of the need to control others and the need to control the outcome of your circumstances, we can live a more authentic life and embrace the present moment. Let's open the conversation with this statement. We've all heard it before, but we're going to dig into it and really see what is the nuts and the bolts and the screws of it. I'm sure I ruined that saying. What is the nuts and the bolts, the screws and the anchors? Whatever that saying is, today we're going to get to the core of it. And here's the statement. To gain control of your life, you must let it go. To gain control of your life, stop trying to control people and stop trying to control circumstances, and you will have control of you. When you stop trying to control people or the circumstances in your life, you gain control of you. Because while you're trying to control people and while you're trying to control the circumstances and the people are actually controlling you. You'll see this statement to be true by the end of this conversation. So let's jump straight into the trap of expectations. Let me show you all something real quick. What if I told you that even your original trauma came about because of expectations? The original lie that we've been talking about over the last week and over the last month, and really breaking down that trauma and how to treat that trauma and how to triage that trauma and how to understand the nuances and the root of your trauma. What if I told you that even your original trauma was a result of your expectations? Let's talk about it. So I want you to think about it, right? When we spoke about your original trauma, what we talked about was at some point, because the mind needs to make sense of everything, when you experience that initial trauma, the abandonment, the rejection, the neglect, whatever it was, your mind needing to feel safe had to make sense of what was happening to you. Pay attention to that. If you never expected to be treated differently, you would have never experienced the original trauma. I'm not talking about physical abuse. I'm not talking about extreme neglect. I'm talking about those emotional traumas that we develop out of us not receiving the nurturing, the love, or all the things that we expected. So Michelle, right on time, right as you made your statement, I was making the clarification that I'm not talking about cases of SA and things of that nature. I'm talking about the emotions that we develop out of not receiving what we expected. So how do we develop these expectations even as children? I've got a 5-year-old. She's going to be 5 in December. One of the things that I realize about my daughter is my daughter has expectations of us as her parents. Those expectations are formed from her childhood entertainment. So many of us don't realize this, but even as children, we have expectations of our parents. The reason why you felt so traumatized by your parents not loving you is because you expected them to. In fact, to better clarify this understanding of our childhood expectation, the first thing, Michelle, you didn't have to apologize. This is the space where you can express anything that you need to express based on what I say. If I am wrong, I will stand corrected. If I say something that is not accurate to your experience, I want you to express that, because this is a community. And a part of coming into this community as the person that is teaching, I always come into this community with my student hat on as well. So you do not have to apologize for that. So let's step back into this. Now, when we talk about expectations as children, think about it this way. We teach children expectation as a part of them simulating into society. What do you mean, coach? We teach children what to expect of their teachers at school. Those are expectations. People are supposed to treat you this way, treat you that way, treat you this way. In fact, expectations are usually already embedded in people's titles. Your expectations in childhood abuse is different because physical abuse is felt. You don't need to expect to not be beaten for you to realize that getting beaten hurts you. You don't need to expect to not be physically assaulted for you to realize that a physical assault actually hurts you. Now, once the pain and the hurt happens, that pain and that hurt is deepened because of the expectation of the people that may have harmed you. Let me give you this example, and then I want to quickly get back to where I was. But I want to address this about physical assault and physical abuse. Think about it this way. The initial abuse physically has its own layer of trauma with it because it is something that you feel immediately. Now, let's all have compassion when we speak about this, but this is a great point to make in answering that question. If it was, and again, I'm saying this with compassion just for educational purposes. If it was a stranger that assaulted you, whether it was physically or whether it was SA or whatever it was, I'm saying this just for educational purposes. If it was a stranger that assaulted you, compared to it being somebody that you had higher expectations of. For example, if it was a parent, if it was a sibling, if it was a family member, if it was a close family friend, those two experiences, even though they are a physical assault on you as the child, they're gonna have its impact just because of the physical violation. But the psychological part that deepens the pain is that you didn't expect this to come from your parent. You didn't expect this to come from a family member. You didn't expect this to come from a loved one. You didn't expect that to be done to you by someone that you have an expectation of. Whereas if it's a complete stranger, you still feel the trauma of the physical assault. But the psychological pain, there's still gonna be a psychological pain there, but the fact that you didn't have any expectations of this stranger, it doesn't deepen the pain. So even in the case of physical assault, expectations still play a part in the depth of the pain that you experience, and more importantly, expectations play a large part in your recovery. See, when it's a stranger, you may find it easier to recover from that assault by going through the necessary trauma, therapy, coaching, counseling, whatever it is. But if it's a family member, if it's a loved one, if it's somebody that had the expectations of loving you and treating you right, it deepens that experience for you. And your recovery is a lot harder because of the expectations that were let down. I hope that covered that, and I hope it made sense. Now, let me get back to this. And in fact, it is directly correlated and related. As children, titles come with expectations. In fact, that is how we condition children for society. Titles come with expectation. Sierra Mindset, first of all, absolute pleasure to have you here. Sierra is an amazing content creator that takes a very unique approach to spreading some of the same uplifting and spiritually evolving messages that I do. So if you want a good variety of content, go check out my girl Sierra. She is also a part of the team that is helping us to bring this amazing project, My Creativity is Killing Me, to the world. So shout out to Sierra. Glad you're a part of the conversation. And every time you're here, I do love your commentary and your input in the comments. All right? So back to this. Understand that we condition children to have expectation based on people's titles. So for instance, just the title of mom or dad, let's put children aside because we can all relate to this even as adults. The title of mother or father automatically comes with some expectations. Do you all agree with that, and do you see that? And then I'm gonna jump off of this and get really into the teaching. But I wanna cover this and let you know that expectation was even at the root of your original trauma. Just the title of mother and father comes with a level of expectations. Based on, even as a kid, when you watch cartoons and you see the way the mom and the dad treats the kids, you start developing expectations, right? And even in the way that we condition our children to be safe, we tell our daughter, only mommy or daddy can do this or do that, or touch you here or touch you there. Only mommy or daddy, right? We're building expectations for her, where we're teaching her there's a certain level of trust that you are supposed to have with us because we are mommy and daddy. Naturally, she feels that trust because of the love that we give her, because of the nurturing that we give her. But just by conditioning, we teach children to see the world through expectations. Let me give you how we teach them in the outer world or the world outside of our homes, and then we'll jump into our lesson plan. When we tell a kid, If you're in trouble and you see a police officer, go to them for help. What are we telling them? The expectation that is unspoken there is police officers are there to help you. Do we all understand that? Because I want to jump into the teaching because we got so much good stuff to follow. Michelle says, my healing came through the great unlearning. Hold on, I don't want to miss that. Dropping expectations, the great unlearning. I love that, Michelle. That's powerful. And that's really what we're talking about today. That is the root of today's conversation. So let's jump in. Expectations are like safety nets, and I want to show you why we have expectations. Because expectations answer one of our most carnal instincts. Expectation answers our need to know. Our need to know comes out of our need for self-preservation. The reason why we give answers to things that we cannot find a logical answer to is because the unknown gives us a sense of fear. We naturally fear that which we don't know. So the reason that whenever there is no logical answer for something, going back to our original trauma, the mind has to create an answer is because this is a function of your self-preservation mode. This is a function of your safety. That's why we make presumptions. That's why we make assumptions. The reason people make presumptions and assumptions, even though it is not a conscious thought, is because it makes you feel safe. If something happens and I cannot determine why that thing happened, I can't determine if that thing is a threat to me. If something shows up in my life and I can't determine why that thing is here, I'm unable to determine if it's a threat to me. So the reason we add answers, or the reason we're constantly searching for answers, is because not knowing makes us feel vulnerable. Not knowing makes us feel unsafe. So we will put an answer there, or we will create an answer, presumption, assumption. We will create the answer because by creating an answer in the situation where there is an unknown, we feel safe. It's the same thing with expectation. Your expectation is like a safety net. They give you the illusion that if you can predict or control the outcome of an event, you'll be safe. But in reality, just like we know what other things that nets are used for, just like nets are used for safety, nets are also used to trap things. So in reality, these nets that you think are your safety nets can oftentimes become your traps, keeping us stuck in disappointment and frustration. And that is the pain of expectation. Let's keep unpacking. So let's break this down a little bit more, right? Where do most of our expectations start? Our expectations of other people. Where is most of your stress, most of the drama in your life, most of the things that cause you unhappiness when it comes to other people? It's in your expectation. Michelle, appreciate the love and the gifts. It's in your expectation, and I'll break that down for you all. We often expect people to behave according to our unspoken rules. We often expect people to behave according to our unspoken rules. Those are your expectations. Let me jump out of this for just a second and show you all this real life scenario. Imagine working at a job with someone that behaves a certain way that you don't like. Every day you show up at this job and this same behavior upsets you. This person has been exactly who they are from the day that you started at this job. But every day you show up, this person being who they are ruins your day. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the saying, if you keep doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome, that is the definition of insanity. You keep showing up at the job, dealing with the exact same person, and yet you keep expecting a different outcome. Laura, happy healing to you. Welcome to the conversation. Joe says, that's just called not liking somebody. But Joe, here's the thing. If not liking somebody is constantly causing you to lose your joy, your peace, your happiness, and all of that, are they the problem? Think about that. If you show up at a job every day and you claim, I don't like this person because this person is this way, the problem is not the person. The problem is you expect them to operate and live their life according to your unwritten rules of how people are supposed to behave. And because this person showing up as themselves never seems to meet your unspoken rule of how they are supposed to behave, it ruffles your feathers every single day. And you will literally project that John, I can't stand that daggone John at the job. John is this way, that way. Imagine being the spouse to the person that can't stand John at work. Every day your spouse comes home and complains to you about how much they can't stand John. At some point, you go, 3 years later, you know John is not going to change. So you can continue showing up at this job and being miserable by the experience that you're having with John simply being himself, or you can change whatever it is within you that John is triggering that's causing you to forego your peace, your happiness, your joy, and what could be a positive experience every day. Does that make sense to you all? All right, I see a question in all caps. This is not that kind of chat. You could just regularly type it, and if I see it, I'll respond to it. But I'll respect that you needed your comment seen, and I'm going to acknowledge that and read this comment and engage with you. GoogleMe.com. Okay, let's do it. What about doing it with hopes of your behavior? Whoa, what is that? What about doing it? Look at my moderators being the amazing people that they are. Thank you for whoever penned that. I appreciate you. All right. GoogleMe.com says, what about doing it with the hopes of your behavior may eventually change? See, that's why I love this community. That's why I show up, Kara, thank you. That's why I show up with my pen and pad willing to learn every day, because you all are as intelligent as the information that you're receiving. What an amazing question. The question is, what about doing it with the hopes of your behavior may eventually change them? So here's the thing. Let me find it for you. This was going to be one of my closing statements that I was going to share with you all. You all ready? 2 things. First, if you are doing whatever it is that we're referring to as the it, with the hopes of your behavior may eventually change them, if you're doing it with that, then you should not show up with expectation. Because what your expectation implies is that, matter of fact, let me take a step back. Why are you trying to change people? Let me read this statement to you all that I was going to give you all at the end of this lesson, and I will still give it at the end of the lesson for the new people that would show up. People never change at their core. They change their persona, but the authentic version never changes. So when you see a person and they show you who they are, please believe them and stop trying to change them. It has never been your job to change people. In fact, that is exactly what the core of this conversation is about. The moment we realize that we don't need to change anybody for us to have a good experience with that person, we just need to change the thing inside of us that person's behavior is triggering, or remove yourself. You can never change a person, and it's never been your job, and it is never going to be a successful venture to set yourself out to change someone. Here's the other reason why you can never change a person. Because and this is so core to the foundation of what we teach. Change never happens from the outside. Change may be provoked by something on the outside, but change is an internal decision that each of us must make. Now, it's all love. Don't worry about the all caps, googleme.com. It's all love. I kid. All right, so googleme.com gave us a follow-up, and then we'll jump right back in. googleme.com says, what I mean by that, some hopes that goodness that you do will eventually rub off on them. I'm completely with you on that, but that's a problem. And let me show you something. GoogleMe.com, I say this with love, and this may not be your situation. You see how adamant you are about you can do something to change them? I'm sure you may not have been here over the last week or two, but that's a trauma response. Oftentimes, the person that is gun-ho that they can do something to change somebody is operating from the savior complex. This is a person that believes that I can do it. That's the savior complex. If I just keep them around me, my good deeds will rub off on them. That's the savior complex. Here's the thing that I need you to completely grasp and understand. Their change is not dependent upon how good you are around them. Their change is not dependent upon how well you exemplify the life that you would like them to live. Their change is not dependent upon anything that you can do. It's dependent upon their desire to change. Do you understand that there are people that have endless supply of financial resources, which means they can go and pay any specialist in the world to help them deal with whatever problem that they are battling? But if these people do not have a desire to change, it does not matter where you put them. It does not matter how luxurious the rehab facility is. It does not matter the team of people you put around them. It does not matter how qualified the therapist is, how qualified the psychologist is. It does not matter. If a person does not have a desire to change from within, you can be Jesus Christ. I want y'all to catch that one. If a person does not have a desire to change, you can be any savior that you can be the greatest savior that this ecosystem speaks of. And we see that even with this understanding, it will not change a person unless the desire comes from within. The other part that I want to highlight, and again, googleme.com, this may not be your reality, but when we are that gun-ho about our desire or our willingness or our ability to help someone change or help someone evolve or help someone to break free, that is usually our own trauma manifesting itself as the savior complex. Because now I feel a sense of accountability or a sense of responsibility to your change. That's my own trauma. Because if I didn't have that trauma triggering me, I would understand that your change is not dependent upon me. Your change is not dependent on what I do, how I exemplify good life or good living. Your change is not dependent upon any of those things. And if I am gun-ho about changing you, that's usually my savior complex manifesting out of my own trauma. Does that make sense to you all? Great question, googleme.com. And welcome to the community. Welcome to the conversation. Pleasure to have you here. Does that make sense? And then we can start moving on. D178 says, many marriages fail trying to have a control complexion. Absolutely. Or having that. We'll talk about this. We're going to stay on this theme of expectation, and we're going to talk about how expectation shows up in relationships, how expectation shows up in belief. So this is going to be our theme going into tomorrow and then early next week as well. So you're going to see how expectations play a role in relationships. But you are absolutely right. D178, that not only do many relationships or marriages fail trying to have a control complexion, but many relationships fail from the beginning because we meet a person, and let me show you what this looks like. We meet a person, you might be, not even might, most of the times you are attracted to them physically. And they may have other qualities that you really like about them. But then you realize and you see some of the other qualities about them that you don't like so much. You see some of the other qualities that you don't find so appealing. And what do you tell yourself oftentimes, again, because of your own neediness? Because of your own neediness. See, the things that you observed about them, whether it be their physical, the things that you're physically attracted to, and then all the other qualities that you're attracted to, those qualities appeal to your inner neediness. So because of those qualities that you saw that appeal to your inner neediness, when you see all the other qualities about this person that you don't like, that you know are going to be a problem for you, your neediness tells you, I can change those things so it's okay. Because you need these elements, because you need this part of the person, you will compromise and tell yourself, oh, I can change these things about them if I just love them right. Or I can change these things about them if they're just around me enough. And from that perspective, that relationship is destined to fail for all the reasons that I stated about why you can't change anybody. Does that make sense to you all? And we'll cover that in the episode that talks specifically about expectations and relationships. This is more of a general overview of expectations. All right, so we'll come back to that. Let's jump back where we were. All right, so here's where we were. Talking about the expectations of other people. We often expect people to behave according to our unspoken rules. Here's the question, and here's an important question. What are your expectations based on? Be a happy healing to you. What are your expectations based on? Notice how we were able to identify the savior complex that tells yourself that you can change someone, or if you just exemplify right for them, you can help them change, or that if you just keep them around you long enough, they're going to change. We already identified the savior complex. What are your other expectations rooted in? Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So, when I ask you what shape your expectation, here's another way to formulate this question for you. Why did you expect that, and why do you expect that? So I'm going to give you all some examples here, and we'll get to it, right? But I want to highlight this. We don't expect things from people oftentimes because of who they are. Oftentimes, our expectations are not based on the person at all. I am speaking about in relationships that are more so further apart, not contractual relationships. What I mean by contractual relationships, a marriage is a contract, has nothing to do with love. If you marry for love, you're going to struggle. Marry because you and that person enter into a contract and you both are on the same page about how you want to live, what you want to do with your lives, how you want to split responsibilities in your life, how you want to conduct your life when it comes to children. That's a contract that you must sit with a person and make sure you are aligned, not because you love a person. Oftentimes, that is the root of failed marriages as well. I love you, but you and I are really not on the same page. We're not on the same page. Think about it like this. Would you merge with a company just because you love the company? If you were a successful company, would you merge with another company simply because you love that company? Let's say you're a successful company and you have your own board, right? You got a board of investors, and you are looking to merge with another company. Would you go to your investors and say to them, hey, we want to merge with that company over there because we love that company? Your board of directors and your investors are going to look at you like, great, That's a great starting point. That's a great place for us to start, that we love the company that we intend to merge with. But how well does that company align with our vision? How well does that company align with our morals and our values? How well does that company align with our path for success? How well does that company align with our brand? There's so much more that is contractually important to two companies actually merging together than the two companies loving each other and loving how each other have been conducting themselves in the business world. That's what a marriage is. So Angela Deeb, is that it? Yep, Angela Deeb. Angela says, this is confusing. A lot of us were taught love is all we need. Angela, this isn't confusing when it comes to your second statement. Love is all you need. And in fact, if we were operating in the first love that is most important, self-love, we wouldn't be in a state where we're needing somebody to be something so that we can feel whole. Expectations. So yes, love is all you need, but love is the foundation that then produces all these other fruits in your life. And out of love comes a sense of regulating your expectations, because out of the love for yourself, you don't operate in neediness. So because you don't operate in neediness, when you enter into relationships, you have a clear eye to observe and to discern what is and who is in front of you. But if we're not operating in self-love, then the foundation or anything that you start with has no strong foundation to stand on. But stick around. Who was that? I'm sorry. Angela, stick around. I'm sure you're going to find more of this information useful to you. We're happy that you're here. Welcome to the community and happy healing to you. Let's keep moving. All right, so here's an example. No. Here's the point that I wanted to make. Most of the time, our expectations are not based on who the person is. Our expectations are based on our need or our trauma or the thing that we desire. Most of the time, our expectations of people are not based on who the person is. Our expectations are based on our own needs, our own desire, or the trauma that we have not resolved. Let me show you an example. If your expectations were based on who the person is, you would not be disappointed. I'll give you all another quote that I was going to save until the end of the message, but is relevant right now. I want to quote a late, great poet. This was someone that helped me survive a lot of my own childhood trauma with their art. Many of you are not going to know who I'm talking about, but if you do know who I'm talking about, just put the 3 letters in the chat. Don't be obvious. Don't be extra. Just put the 3 letters in the chat if you know who I'm talking about. So I want to take a moment to quote the late, great artist, Earl Simmons. The late, great artist, Earl Simmons said, when people, actually, he was quoting, I believe it was Maya Angelou, he was quoting another great poet, but I like the way that he said it because I could relate to his come on, Grace and Joy. I could relate to his element at the time that he said it. But the late, great artist and poet, Earl Simmons, said, when people show you who they are, believe them. I know it's been repeated many times, but I liked it when Earl said it. Adding to this, most of us don't believe people or have expectations for people based on who they have shown us to be. Most of us have expectations of people based on what we would like them to be. We have expectations of people based on what we want them to be. We have expectations of people based on what we need them to be, not based on who they are. And what Earl and Maya Angelou and all the other great poets that have repeated this statement to us, what they have been trying to teach us is stop basing your expectations of other people based on your neediness. That's why you end up heartbroken. That's why you end up disappointed, because you're expecting of somebody based on you and not basing your expectations on them. When someone shows you who they are, believe them and set your expectations based on that. Expect people to be exactly who they are. I cannot tell you how freeing that is. The moment you start expecting people to just be themselves and not meeting your expectation, the moment you start expecting people to be exactly who they showed you they were, your disappointment level in life decreases so much, because now I no longer need you to, let me stop there, we'll pick it back up, because we'll cover a lot of this in the lesson plan. But did you all grasp that, and do you see the value in the late, great Earl Simmons? And shout out to everybody who knew who that great gentleman was. Before I jump into the lesson plan, I'll share another Earl Simmons story. I remember I was in 10th or 11th grade. I was in my French class, and this is when I was at the point in my life where it didn't matter. If I died tomorrow, if I lived, it did not matter. Like I was showing up to school most days, stashing my pew-pew in the alley somewhere, to give you the context. I was gone, living a life of pain, trauma, feeling like the world didn't see me, the world didn't love me, and I didn't love myself at that time. That's why I was ready to take someone else's as well as give mine. But I'm sitting in my French class with Miss Whitfield, this amazing woman who, no matter what I did, she always was just consistently loving me. But I'm sitting in Miss Whitfield's class, and we were doing something, some type of reflection, and she was going around the room and asking us this very meaningful question about life, innocent to all these high school students. Yours truly looked at Ms. Whitfield in that entire classroom and quoted Earl Simmons and said, "To live is to suffer, and to survive, well, that's to find meaning in the suffering." I don't believe that today, but at that point in my life, that was all that I knew was suffering. So that saying from Earl stuck with me. And when I said that in that classroom that day, that was the day that Ms. Whitfield and I made a bond. Because in that moment, Ms. Whitfield looked me in my eyes and she saw that I believed that statement wholeheartedly. And from that day, she started pouring little drops of life into me. And just pouring life into me. And just reminding me that I was valuable, that I was special, that I had a gift inside of me that one day so many people would benefit from if I just simply held on long enough to manifest that gift. So shout out to Ms. Whitfield, because she's the reason we're all getting this message today. All right, let's get back to work. So here's the example of the expectations that we hold of others. I'm gonna use a very safe example, and then we're gonna get to some more spicy examples. So a safe example is this. You expect your friend to check on you when you're going through something tough, right? That's just your expectation because of the nature of your friendship. What happens when they don't check on you? What happens when that friend doesn't check on you? Because of the expectation, you feel abandoned. Because of the expectation, come on. Yachty, listen, Yachty. I don't know how long you've been listening to these messages. I don't know how long you've been a part of the Happy Healing family and community. But that answer It's an answer that requires you to have so much internal fortitude and knowledge of self and selflessness. Yachty said, I asked the question, first of all, Chris Jen, that's the right answer. We assume things, and I'll give you all some of the examples of the assumptions. But I asked the question, what happens when that friend doesn't check on you? Yachty had the audacity to say, you check on them. Yachty, where are you from? What world of selflessness are you operating in that you are the one going through something tough and you have an expectation of friends checking on you? And even though you're the one experiencing this tough time in your life, when they don't check on you, you actually have the wherewithal and the emotional fortitude to not form conclusions, to not make assumptions, to not feel abandoned, to not feel let down, but you actually have the mind to check on them. You're far ahead of this lesson, because at the end of this lesson, that's what we're supposed to be grabbing. That instead of me making an assumption because my expectation has not been met, let me take the step to understand what took place. Many of us never get to that step because the expectation not being met leads us into the rabbit hole of disappointment, the rabbit hole of abandonment, the rabbit hole of, are they really my friend? Because my true friend would have checked on me. When in reality, that true friend may not be in a position to check on you. That true friend may not understand the severity of what you're going through. But because of your expectation, it's not what listen to this. It's not the inaction of the friend that caused you the pain, the disappointment, the frustration, and the sense of abandonment. It's not what the friend didn't do. I want you to pay attention to this because this is important. We will literally resolve that it is what the friend did not do that's causing me the disappointment and the pain and the frustration and the hurt that I feel because they didn't check on me. No, it's not. The pain, the hurt, the frustration that you feel has nothing to do with the friend. It has everything to do with your expectation of the friend. Because if you did not expect them to call, because that was the nature of your relationship, you wouldn't feel the disappointment. You wouldn't feel the abandonment. You wouldn't feel the frustration. So the actual culprit of your pain is not the friend. It's your expectation. Do you all see that? It deepens the tension and the pain that you are already experiencing. But check it out. The expectation came out of a need from the friend. The expectation came out of a need. All right, let's keep building. We'll build on some of these. You'll see some different examples, and this thing is going to lay itself out very plain and simple for us. The other expectation that leads and drives our trauma, our frustration, our disappointment, and all of the things that rob us of happiness is our expectations of circumstances. We expect life to go according to our plans as if we know enough to predict life. Do you understand that your expectation of things working out the way that you envision them to is you literally standing in the arrogant position of telling life how to life? Do you understand that most of your hurt and your pain about the circumstances and situations in your life are not because of the circumstances and situation? It's because of your expectation. You really believe that you know how life is supposed to life. In your limited experience, in your limited memory of experiences, you literally think that you know all the circumstances and all the various methods by which this circumstance is supposed to play out. And because you know the infinity of potential, You know the one potential that is the only right way, and that's the way that you expect it to. So whenever it shows up any other way outside of how you expect it to, you're disappointed because your mind and your ego tells you, you know the way that this is supposed to go. And the fact that it's not going the way that you envisioned it means what? It's not happening the way it is supposed to. Therefore, now you have your disappointment. Now you have your stress. Now you have your frustration. Now you have your anxiety. Why? Because this situation and circumstance is not meeting my expectation. Is it the situation or the circumstance that's causing your pain? Or is it your expectation? And I'm going to give you such a powerful resolution to how you deal with your expectation about circumstances and situations in your life. Here's an example for you. This isn't the solution. This is just your example. And this is another soft example. We'll get to the more spicy ones in a little bit. So let's say you expect a promotion after putting in extra hours at work and after doing all the things that they told you to do. And somebody else gets the promotion. What do you feel? Disappointment? What else? Sierra Anderson, happy healing to you, and welcome back to the conversation. What else do you feel? Constance, also, happy healing to you, and welcome to the conversation. Year of transformation, happy healing to you, and welcome to the conversation. I try to catch you all as I see you. Anzaya, same thing to you, welcome to the conversation. So I see rejection, jealousy, anger. Moon Daughter says, this just happened to me, resentment. Unappreciated. Now, let me ask you the question. What is producing all of those feelings inside of you? Is it the fact that you did not get the promotion, or is it your expectation? Not feeling good enough, maybe wasted time? It's your expectation. Okay, Kira, I love that. So Kira says both. All right, I like that. Let's explore that. So Kara says it's both. It's the fact that I didn't get the promotion and the fact that I had the expectation. But Kara, let's take a step back. The only reason you expected the the only reason there's a disappointment around you not getting the promotion is because of the expectation that I did all of these things and I'm going to get it because I did all of these things. Because I did all of these things, now my need must be met. So now, because I'm entering this with an expectation of my needs being met, when my needs are not met according to my expectation, I'm disappointed. Here's what I mean, Kira, and here's the plain layout. Because I didn't get this promotion, does that mean that my efforts were wasted? Because I didn't get this promotion, does that mean that there's not a good thing on the horizon for me? Because I didn't get this promotion, does that mean that I will not be promoted to a better space, a better position, a better opportunity, a better work environment, a better job? Does that mean that I am not going to have what I desire because I didn't get this promotion? It does not. But because of my expectations, what do? I feel the resentment. I feel the what else did we list? I feel the resentment. I feel the apprehension. I feel the fear. I feel the betrayal. I feel unappreciated. I feel the unfairness. I feel the jealousy. I feel all of that. And what does that do? It robs me of my drive. It robs me of the way that I was showing up before. So because I didn't get this promotion, what am I likely to do? Stop doing all the things that I was doing because I was only doing them in expectation of getting the promotion. So now, out of that disappointment, that resentment, and all of the things that you all listed, I'm not going to go as hard as I was going before. Here's the catch to this. When you stop going hard, you missed your opportunity when it came. Just because the first thing didn't happen according to your expectation, you turned away and stopped expecting and stopped doing the things that you did to even put you in a position to be promoted. And then you miss your opportunity when it comes. I'm going to give you all two examples of this. The first example is related to this job scenario. So I remember I worked for Home Depot for 10 years before I left Home Depot and started my life and health coaching business. I remember as a supervisor in my early years, I became a supervisor at Home Depot within 6 months of working there. I started out as an order puller, making like $8 and change an hour. And that was only 11 years ago. That was kind of a flex, a little bit. But you'll see the reason why the flex is there, because it supports the problem that I'm about to explain to you. So I remember being a supervisor. When I became a supervisor at Home Depot, when I first started at Home Depot, I had a vision of what I wanted to do. I knew right away that I was going to turn this into a career, and these people were going to pay me a lot of money to do what I was going to do there. So I was the supervisor that when it snowed, and the store manager was like, hey, man, we need somebody to go shovel the back of the store. Don't worry about it. I got it. I was the supervisor that went outside and pushed carts whenever we needed carts in the front of the store. I was the supervisor that would go help out in other departments whenever they needed me to. I was kicking ass at Home Depot as a supervisor. Let me just be clear. When I became a front-end supervisor and was supervising the cashiers, we literally changed the trajectory of our entire district just with our performance on our front end. Again, I was kicking ass as a supervisor. I remember I was kicking so much ass as a supervisor that the district manager was on my head, calling the store, asking for me directly. It was all good. I knew I was the next person to get promoted as an assistant store manager. And then they went through the next round of promotions, and I didn't get promoted. Oh, I was definitely a lit leader. You guys see the excitement and everything that I bring here? That's what I brought to leadership. That motivating and inspiring people that I do here, that's what I brought to leadership. That was what I loved about the job. I got to do this to people. I got to pour light, love, and wisdom into people. I love doing it, right? But when I didn't get the promotion, I was devastated. I was literally the top performing supervisor in 2 districts within the area. I was literally changing the bonuses for every manager in both of those districts with the performance of just my store. I was devastated. So what did I start doing? I lost my edge. I stopped going as hard for the store as I used to. I stopped doing the extra things that I was doing for the management team. I stopped actually functioning as the third manager as they used to have me doing, because I was so disappointed and devastated that I was like, why would I keep going? And then I had a conversation with one of my mentors about 3 months into this slump. And he said to me, hey, Kohn, I noticed that I had also changed departments. He said to me, hey, man, I noticed that your department isn't really showing up on the scorecard like you used to. Like you was always at the top of the scorecard. What happened? And I broke it down to him. I was like, yo, I was the top performing supervisor in 2 districts for at least 2 years straight. I should have been promoted. And then he explained this to me. He said, let me get this straight. So you stopped doing all the things that you were doing to put you in the position to be promoted because you weren't promoted. I said, yeah. Why would I keep doing all the extra stuff? And then he said something that we've all heard before, and I'll say it the way we've all heard it because I think it'll resonate a little bit better. He said to me, Kohn, because the way you do anything is the way you do everything. The one thing that these district managers are observing is exactly where you are, is how you respond when you don't get what you want or when you don't get the position that you want. That is one of the biggest indicators of your leadership readiness. If you get jumped over for a promotion, or if you get jumped over for an opportunity, and it changes the way that you perform, what it says to the leadership is, that's not how you do everything. That's not who you really are. Because if that is who you were really at your core, then you not getting something that you wanted will not change the way you show up. If this was who you were, the circumstances are not going to change you, because how you do anything is how you do everything. And that's when I realized, oh, it wasn't the fact that so essentially what he also explained to me was, Kohn, I have access to the high performer list of supervisors. Even though you didn't get promoted 3 months ago, you were at the top of that list of high performers. Today, you're not on that list anymore, because you stopped doing the things that got you to the top of the list. And I got back on my game and eventually got promoted and ended up as an assistant manager and did all the great things that I did at Home Depot until I left. But the point there was, it was my expectation that led to my devastation. It wasn't the fact that I didn't get promoted, because the opportunity was still there. It was my expectation that left me devastated, because I thought, because of everything that I had done, I was entitled to be promoted. And out of that expectation led to me being devastated and ultimately prolonging my own promotion. Because once I fell off of that top performers list, I had to get myself together and get myself back there so I would eventually be promoted. All right, let's keep moving. I'll close this part with this statement. Expectations are stories we tell ourselves about how life and people should behave. Your expectations are the stories that you tell yourself about how life and people should behave, as if you are the author of their life, as if you are the author of the circumstances. So let me add this real quick, because it connects to the story that I just told you all. The motto for my coaching, my life coaching and health coaching business is, the outcome of your life is not determined by the size of the adversity that you face, but it is determined by your response. So in the moment that you are rejected, in the moment that you don't get the promotion, in the moment that the thing you desire does not happen, that does not determine the outcome. Because it didn't happen in that moment is not the determining factor of the outcome, but it is your response. Because with your response, you actually show what your true value is. All right, let's keep building. I want to throw this question out there before we get to how expectations reflect the unmet needs inside of you, because that's where most of your expectations come from. Here's a question that I'm going to show you. Where do you think your expectations today come from? The expectations that you have of the world, the expectations that you have of people, the expectations that you have of yourself. Where do you think that comes from? Okay, we'll go to the next section, which is how expectations reflect our unmet needs. Expectations are often projections. Child, come on. I know you all know. Learned, parents, combo of external programming and experience, childhood, unhealed self, all correct. Previous experiences, all correct. Someone always watching reaction. All accurate, right? Your expectations are often projections of your unmet needs. Listen to this. When we expect other people to behave a certain way, outside of our contract, I want to emphasize that because some relationships are contracts, and that contract warrants me to expect certain things from you. Outside of our contracts, you don't have a contract with the people at work for them to behave a certain way. You don't have a contract with the person that you meet in the store for them to behave a certain way, right? Your contracts are your personal contracts. Outside of that, when we expect people to behave a certain way, it's because we're looking for validation, love, or approval. I'm not going to say that's always the case, but I'm about to make a great case. Oh, Anzaya, thank you for bringing that up. There's also the contract that you have with yourself. Let's park that. All right? When you expect people to behave a certain way, it's normally because we're looking for validation, love, or approval. We're hoping that other people will fill the gap within us that we have not yet learned to fill ourselves. I see some of you are a little bit hesitant to embrace that part. Let's build on it a little bit. Let me show you how we expect validation based on our unmet needs. So the expectation is, let's just say in a relationship, you expect your partner to constantly compliment you or affirm your worth. You expect your partner to constantly tell you, you look good when you feel like you look good. You expect your partner to constantly confirm to you the efforts that you're making to make yourself look good. That's an expectation. You expect your friends to tell you when you look good. That's your expectation. What is the unmet need? The real need is for your internal validation. You want to feel worthy, but instead of giving that to yourself, you're waiting for someone else to provide it. Yeah, we all want our partner to recognize that we look good, but I'm not dependent upon you telling me I look good for me to know I look good. Here's the impact. When your partner or your friend or the people that you expect to tell you that you look good, when your partner or the people don't compliment you, what do you feel? Unloved? Unappreciated? And some of you listed this already, right? See how we associate how we are loved or how we are appreciated with our expectation? Your expectation said, if I don't meet it, then I may not love you, or I don't appreciate you, or I don't think that you're beautiful. When in fact, it's your own need for validation that's unfulfilled. It's not me. Or here's one. And this is where we see the connection to our original trauma. Why is TikTok keep inviting people to co-host? Yes, turn it off. Here's the one that connects you back to that original trauma. You go back to that original insecurity and it kicks in and it tells you that your partner doesn't find you attractive. Because of your need, your internal need for validation. If your partner or your friends or your friend group or the people that you have this expectation from, because of your own internal need for validation, you now have this expectation that people need to tell you when you look good. People need to compliment you when you've made the effort. People need to tell you when you spent all that time doing your hair, putting your outfit together. They need to recognize that. That's your own internal need for validation that has now developed this expectation. And when that expectation is not met, what do you tell yourself? What is the story or the narrative that you start to tell yourself because your expectation isn't met? And can I please caution you to recognize that that story has no basis in truth, at least not yet. It's solely based on your expectation not being met. They haters. Coco Rain said, nah. They hate us. Hey, Coco Rain, that's the reason they're not complimenting you. But look, even though we laugh at that, right? They just jealous of me. Even though we laugh at that, right? Is that not the serious narrative that we start to tell ourselves simply because our expectation is not met? Now someone that you just went from, oh, I want them to tell me how beautiful I am. Because they don't meet that expectation, now this person is a hater. Now they're jealous. All of these other things when it could simply be, baby, I was too busy to recognize that you had even made all that effort. My bad. See, expectation does this. Expectation voids the other person's circumstances. Your expectation never takes into consideration what the other person is going through. Why? Because your expectations are not based on external things, really. Your expectations are based on your own need for internal validation. And that focus on your own need for internal validation does not allow you to properly see the world as it is. It gives you a lens, and then through that lens, you start to create the narrative. They just jealous. They just some haters. They don't really love me. They don't think I'm attractive. They don't really want to be with me. They're not really my friends. Why wouldn't my friends recognize all the efforts that I made into looking this good? And then you continue on this entire narrative within your mind that is simply based on your expectation. Do we see that? One in the comments, please, if you see that. And that's just covering your expectations of validation. Awesome. Let's move to your expectation of emotional support. All right. The expectation is you expect that a friend or a loved one to always be there for you emotionally. But let's just say they got their own struggles. They got their own stuff they're dealing with. Your unmet need is this. You need emotional security, but instead of building it within you, you place the responsibility on other people to be your emotional support. That becomes your expectation. There's nothing wrong with that. But too often, your expectation is not based on what people have shown you. Your expectation is based on your own internal need. Let me show you why this is. Let me show you this. This is the part that our brains don't bring to us when we're functioning from this place of our expectation. Watch this. If I have always been consistent in being your emotional support system, and I've always been there for you emotionally, which is why I would hope you expect me to be there today. If you follow, put a 1 in the chat because this is a good point. If you expect me to be there for you today, it must be based on that I have shown you that I would be there for you because I've shown up for you in the past. We agree? Yes? Okay, now let me show you where the psychology happens that leaves us stuck and leaves us hurt. If I have always shown up for you, which is why you have an expectation that I'm going to be there for you today, if I don't make it today, Why are you so quick to come to all of these conclusions about me if my history is that I've always been there? Should you not have some consideration if Kohn has always been there for me and this one time he's not there for me? Maybe it's something going on with him. Maybe I should do what my girl Yada said about 15 minutes ago, and I should call and check on Kohn. Do you understand the psychology? That if, in fact, I've always shown up for you, why are you forming all of these conclusions? Because your expectation is not based on rational thinking. Rational thinking will tell you, if Kohn has always been there for me, then I should definitely be able to expect Kohn today. And if Kohn didn't show up for me today, it's not because Kohn doesn't love me, Kohn doesn't care, Kohn's not a good friend. Maybe he's going through something. But you don't think that, do you? Because your expectations are not reasonable based on actual facts. Your expectations are oftentimes based on your own unmet needs. And because it is your unmet needs, you're not able to actually look outside and make an accurate assessment of me or anybody else around this situation. Yo, Coco Rain, I love your sense of humor. And I don't even know if you're trying to be funny, but I find it funny. Coco Rain says, and you're just selfish. Coco Rain, I won't say it's selfish. I'll give grace. All right, and I think we should all give grace here. It's not, sometimes it is just selfishness, right? But oftentimes it's not because they're selfish, it's because there is an unresolved trauma within them, and they have now placed a dependency upon the friend, upon the person in the relationship to meet those expectations that come out of that unresolved trauma. So because they're operating from a trauma response, they're no longer actually thinking about me, thinking about you. They're being consumed by the trauma. I agree, Mama Love. We do have some great people in here. Definitely got some great people in here. You guys understand that? So the unmet need for those of us, or for those of you that have this expectation that your friend or your loved ones to always be there for you emotionally, the unmet need is that you need emotional security. And because you have not established that emotional security within you, and you do have your original lie or your original trauma that causes you to not feel safe, that causes you to need the additional support, you place that responsibility on other people. And that responsibility becomes your expectation of them. And what's the impact? When that friend doesn't show up in the way that you want, or when that loved one doesn't show up in the way that you want, you feel what? Abandoned? You feel betrayed? You feel like they're not showing up for you. You feel alone in the world. You feel like no one loves you. No one cares about you. Now you start spinning the narrative. Remember yesterday and the day before, we spoke about the narrative that we spin to support the original lie and to support the ego. Now you start spinning the narrative, when in fact, it's not even about me. It's about you. It's about what it is that is not met within you that has now created this unhealthy expectation of me. The real issue there is you are relying on external sources for something that can only be built from the inside. Does that make sense to you all? And the worst conclusion, as far as the impact, is when you conclude that this person isn't really my friend. Can you imagine that? And let me show you how this plays out sometimes. You're going through something. Internally, you haven't figured out how to work through your stuff yet, so you develop this expectation that your friends, your family, everybody around you is supposed to just show up whenever you have a need. I started this by saying the friend or the family or the loved one is also going through something. So now look at this dynamic. You as the friend that has always expected me to show up and I've always shown up for you, today I'm going through something. So I didn't show up for you. And what do? You conclude that I'm not a real friend because I didn't show up for you this one time. That I don't really rock with you because I wasn't there for you in your hardest time. Mind you, I am the person that you only have this expectation of because I've always shown up. Now tell me how I feel that I am finally going through something where maybe I need you to show up for me, but guess what you do? You stop talking to me. Why did you stop talking to me? Because I didn't meet your expectation. So because I didn't meet your expectation, you made all these conclusions and you developed all these narratives within your mind about me. So now you cut me off. And now as a real friend, when I finally get out of my stuff and I do my assessment, I go, damn, where were you when I needed a friend? And now guess what? More than likely, when we finally do talk, guess what it sounds like? I needed you. Well, I needed you. I needed you to be there. I needed you to be there. You aren't a good friend. You aren't a good friend. And if one of us was actually healed, and if one of us had actually done the internal work, and let's say that person is you, you would recognize that in the moment where I didn't show up for you, but I've always been consistently showing up, you will snap out of your own circumstance and situation and go, let me check on my friend. All right, let's keep building. Let's talk about the real deep one. And that is expecting others to heal your wounds. This is what most relationship expectations are built on. That we enter relationships to fix something. Damn. Whew. That hit. We enter relationships to fix something instead of entering the relationship to celebrate something. Here's the expectation for those that have the expectations for others to heal you. You expect your partner to fix your emotional pain or to complete you in some way. Using 2 cups instead of 3. Come on, Anzaya. You know you've been here for at least 3 to 4 to 5 weeks. Come on. I love the reference. If you all missed the reference, that's our relationship reference, where relationships are 3 cups. You're 1 cup overflowing. I am 1 cup overflowing, and we're both supposed to be pouring that overflow into the relationship. It is not I'm a half empty cup, you're a half empty cup, and we both come into the relationship. Think about that. Listen to how wild that is. I'm a half empty cup, you're a half empty cup, and we're both expecting the other person to make us whole. You know what that leads to? Somebody's gonna leave this broken relationship completely empty. If I'm a half empty cup and you're a half empty cup and we enter into a relationship with the expectation that we are supposed to make each other whole, whoever has the most dominant approach or finesse or game is going to get the other person to pour into them, and one person is going to leave this relationship empty, drained, and neither one of us are going to be fully fulfilled. So that's the reference. But let's get to this. You expect your partner to fix your emotional pain or to complete you, when the real unmet need is you're seeking healing and love externally rather than finding ways to heal from within. The impact is when your partner can't meet this impossible expectation because they can't heal you. Remember? That's what we were talking about earlier with the comment that GoogleMe.com made. That what if I just hang around them long enough to rub off on them? You can't heal them. They can't heal you. So it's an impossible expectation right off of the break. That's why those relationships are determined or destined to fail. Because you've already set an expectation that can never be met. I can't heal you. Even as your life coach, I tell my clients all the time, my job is not to heal you. My job is to give you the tools and the resources and the know-how so that you can work the surgery on yourself. My job is to give you the tools, the resources, and the instructions so that you can choose and operate on you. When your partner can't meet this impossible expectation, you feel more broken, more unloved, though the true healing needs to come from within you. But you feel broken and unloved not because of something I did not do. You feel broken and unloved because you had an expectation for me to do something that I could not do. And what do you end up concluding? You go back to your original insecurity of you're not good enough or you're not lovable or whatever it is, or you're not worthy, and you conclude that I don't love you. Because I could not meet this impossible expectation that is based on your own unmet needs from within you, because I couldn't meet it, now you conclude that I don't love you. I never cared about you. Do we understand this? When we expect others to heal our wounds, we are literally expecting to hurt two people. You're going to hurt yourself because that expectation that I can heal your wound is going to lead to your hurt and your disappointment. And in return of you being hurt and disappointed, what do you do to me? When that person doesn't meet your expectation, when that person can't heal you, when that person doesn't have the ability to heal the wounds that you have not sought healing for, what do you end up doing to them? Depending on what the circumstance is, you might rip out of them every sense of value that they had, because their trauma may make you their sense of value. Watch this. The reason why the Savior and the damsel in distress, these are two personas, the reason why they work together so well, because they reinforce each other's trauma. Even though neither one of them can actually do for the other person what they expect, but they continue to reinforce each other's traumas. So, the damsel in distress who can never receive enough, and the Savior who can never give enough, they continue to feed off of each other, even though neither one of them are fulfilled, happy, or enjoying the experience. But it's familiar to them. It's what they know. So they choose what is familiar over the uncertainty of the journey of healing. Because here's one thing that I know that I give grace from. The reason why people are stuck where they're stuck, even when they have the obvious information in abundance, is because what I may tell you is healing is somewhere you've never been before. But you know where you have been? You've been to that pain before. You've been to that trauma before. So when I tell you, like, this is the path to healing, you might look at this path and go, I'm uncertain about that. But you know your pain and you know your trauma, and you've become comfortable somewhat in living with your pain and your trauma. That's why most people oftentimes will choose to continue to live in that stuck state than following the path of the unknown. Why? What did we say earlier? Unknown means danger. The reason why our minds will always presume and assume and find answers when there is no logical explanation for something is because the unknown make us feel, what's the word I'm looking for? Unsafe. There was another word I wanted. But the unknown make us feel unsafe. So rather than feeling unsafe, we come up with a presumption, we come up with an assumption, or we make up a reason for why things are happening the way that they are. Does that make sense to you all? Put a 1 in the comment if it does. And listen, Kira and the other moderators do an amazing job, and they're working extremely hard. Get that up to 50K, just so we know that we're all on the same page, and that the moderators are not, that Kira and the moderators are not typing this in the chat just for nothing. I appreciate that. Much love to you all for that small ask. I don't ask you all for much, but just these small asks for me. Like, share, whatever it is that you feel that you can do to support not only what we're doing here, but to support the next person that may be drawn to this conversation because of your like or because of your share. All right? Let's keep building. Now let's talk about the cycle of control and fear. Because most of your expectations are based on fear. Now, the fear of losing control, the fear of being hurt, the fear of facing uncertainty, these are normally the common fears that produce these expectations. We believe that if we can control the behavior of others or how circumstances and situations unfold, we can protect ourselves from the unknown pain. But in reality, this need for control only causes more suffering. Let's break it down. So I've been touching on it and tapping on it, this fear of uncertainty. Again, the reason, did I put this here at the bottom? Okay, it'll come back up. Let me show you how the fear of uncertainty shows up. We expect certain outcomes, or we create an expectation of what the outcome will be simply because not having certainty or not having a sense of what is to come is too fearful for us to deal with. So we set all these rigid expectations as a means of having a small sense of control. Because in our minds, we think to have control of my life, I must have... You might not see this about yourself, but I'm going to expose it. You think to have control of your life, you need to have control over the people and the circumstances. Well, you need to have control over the people and the outcome of the circumstances. You think that's control of your life. If I can expect, you don't think you are trying to control people, but your expectations are trying to control people. Because your expectations are that I'm supposed to show up according to your unwritten rules. That's you trying to control people, whether you want to accept it or not. Your expectations are trying to control people because your expectations say, because I didn't show up according to your unwritten rules, now we have a conflict. Your expectation doesn't allow me to just be me. I can't wait till we get to the relationship part of this conversation. Your expectation does not allow me to just be me. Your expectations are that I am supposed to show up a certain way, according to your unwritten rules that are oftentimes rooted in your unresolved trauma. Here's the impact of the fear of uncertainty. When life doesn't align with these expectations, we spiral into anxiety and disappointment. We spiral into depression and fear. Simply because life has not met my expectation. And that expectation I developed out of my own unresolved trauma and out of my fear for the unknown, out of my fear for living in uncertainty. How about the fear of rejection? This is how it shows up. We expect others to constantly affirm us, to be available to us, to show up for us, to show us love. Why? Because deep down inside, we're afraid that if we don't receive these things, it's a form of rejection. It triggers our original unresolved trauma. This need. I'm not saying that people don't do this or people are not supposed to do this. What I'm saying is you base your peace, joy, and happiness on this need for people to do this, which then turns into your expectation for people to do this. And the impact is when they don't meet our expectations, what do we feel? Yes, it's the rejection of our original trauma that I'm not good enough, that I'm not lovable, that I'm not worthy. It's that rejection is triggered. But out of that trigger now, out of that rejection, I'm blinded and not realizing that the fear was creating the unrealistic expectation from the beginning. Do you see that? Now that I feel rejected, now that I feel like you're not here for me, now that I am experiencing what is at the core of my original trauma, I am blinded to the fact that it was the unrealistic expectations that I had of you that is actually causing my trauma and not what you did not do or what you are doing. Because I am not supposed to be dependent upon you for my own internal well-being. My expectations of you should be what is based on our contract and not based on what I need. Oh, let me say that again because I felt that resistance. It should be based on our contract and not based on what I need. I got it. I see it. It should be based on our contract and not based on what I need. My expectation should be based on our contract and not based on what I need. Okay. Do you see that the contract is based on a mutual exchange? The contract is based on an expressed and agreed upon exchange. Whereas when my expectations are not based on our contract, it excludes your experience. It excludes what you are receiving. It excludes you, and it's all about what I need and not the contract that mutually benefits us both. See, when I'm operating based on the contract, I must consider your position. I must consider what's going on with you because this is something that I give and I receive. So when it's based on the contract, there is a consideration of your ability to give me what I desire in that moment. When it's based on just me, I don't care what your position is. I don't care what your circumstances are. I expect you to show up because my internal unresolved trauma tells me that people that love me show up for me no matter what. Because it's all about me. My unresolved trauma tells me that people that care about me would be here right now without any consideration of what you may have been going through that prevented you from being here because it's all about me. My unresolved trauma tells me that my real friends would have been here in the moment that I needed them to be there, without any consideration of what they may have been going through because it's all about me. Because my narrative, my inner unresolved trauma is now spinning this narrative to make it all about how you failed me, how you didn't show up for me, how you should have been there, when the reality is the things that you are expecting of me are not things that I am supposed to provide you. Those are things that you are supposed to show up already having. Let me help you all with this. The need for control in your life is an illusion that's based on fear. The only reason you think you need to control people in circumstances or the outcome of circumstances is because you're afraid. It's an illusion. By releasing the need to control outcomes, people, and situations, you can easily free yourself from the constant cycle of fear and disappointment. Learning to embrace the present and trust that life will unfold for your highest good is the key to breaking free. Let's talk about it. Actually, let me do this first. Let me show you all. Let me see if it's in here. Okay, it's in here. We'll get to it. All right, so let's jump into some of the answers and some of the solutions for you all. Releasing expectations and finding joy in the present. Joy and peace come from living in the present moment without trying to control or manipulate how things will unfold. Do you believe that? That joy and peace comes from living in the present moment without trying to control or manipulate. I need to emphasize the heavy on the manipulation. Heavy on the manipulation. Because listen, when you put the word control and manipulation together, they both have the same intention. The only difference is control says, I'm going to do this up front in front of you and you're going to comply. Manipulation says, I don't need you to know what I'm doing, but you're going to comply. When we let go of those rigid expectations, we create space for life to surprise us in ways we could not have imagined. Let me give this to you all now, and if we cover it later on, we'll get to it, but I want to get this out right now. So let me show you all something. When it comes to people, well, actually, let me cover circumstances first. When it comes to circumstances and situations, and we talk about expectations, here is a clear, precise, am I going to mess up my point later on? I'll get to it in just a minute. All right. Because it's a part of the flow of information. For those of you that know how I teach like you're reading a book, right? The information right here leads into the information right here, and sometimes I can jump ahead, but if I jump ahead and follow up some information here, it kind of devalues the information here, so just bear with me and be patient, all right? When we let go of those rigid expectations, we can create space for life to surprise us in ways that we never expected. Notice how surprise and uncertainty are the same thing. The difference is when we use the word surprise, there is some opening of this is positive, this can be good, this can be enjoyable. Whereas uncertainty always, most of the time, has this negative implication of what you don't know holds some potential to harm you. Or the uncertainty implies that you should know. I won't spend too much time there. But how do you shift your focus from outcomes to the present? An easy way to do this, and actually I should lay this down now because it'll give you the foundation for all of this. So let me take a few steps back and show you when it comes to circumstances and situations, this is how you ought to operate to always have the outcome that you desire or to maintain your peace, your inner joy, and all the things that you need in order to thrive. When it comes to circumstances and situations, here is the easiest way that I can teach you this, and then I'm going to teach you about manifestation later in this same conversation. But the easiest way that you can do this is this. Expect that everything is working out for your good, and accept that you don't need to know how it's going to work out. Just know it's going to work out for your good. Watch this. In order to gain control of your life, you have to let it go. So watch. If I don't need to know exactly how it's going to work out, if I don't need to pinpoint in my mind exactly how the details are going to work out, but I know for a fact it's going to work out in my favor, however it shows up, let me give you this analogy. Let's say I know for a fact that the tree that is in my backyard that is threatening to fall on my house, I know for a fact that that tree is going to come down and is not going to land on my house. I know that somehow that tree is it's never going to land on my house and I'm going to be safe. I just know that for a fact. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know. I'm not trying to control how it's going to happen. I let go of that. I just believe and I sit on that belief that it's going to happen. So when I get a knock on the door and the man says, hey, I'm with the city of such and such, and we've been doing a survey in the community, and your tree, the tree in your backyard, is actually a threat to your home and to your neighbor's home, so you have to do something about that tree. Watch this. Because I know for a fact that tree is not going to fall on my home and it is going to come down. When this man shows up with whatever he just said, and I'm coming off the cuff with this scenario. When he shows up and says whatever he says, in my mind, because I know how this tree is going to work out, but I don't know the details, I welcome this gentleman in. Come on in, sir. Let's talk about it. What are the options here? Because I could have perceived this person showing up as a bad thing, as a negative thing. Well, this is not happening according to the way that I expected it to happen. I expected the tree to come down, but I didn't expect the city to try to find me because the tree is also a threat to my neighbor's house. Oh my God, now I'm in this sense of disarray. I'm stressed. I'm overwhelmed. I'm dealing with anxiety. I know that tree is going to come down. So when this man showed up, I automatically don't presume what he's here for, but I have it within me that that tree is going to come down in a safe way. So however the opportunity may show up, I am not resistant to the opportunity simply because it didn't meet my expectation. So by letting go of the specifics of how things are supposed to work out in my favor, I gain control of my inner peace. This is what they mean by, in order to gain control of your life, you must let it go. Because we have thought controlling your life is controlling the circumstances and controlling the people. That is the wrong way to look at it. Controlling your life is controlling your insides. Controlling your life is controlling the level of anxiety that you allow to arise within you because things aren't working out the way they're supposed to. Controlling your life is being able to govern your emotions in the moments when things are not happening the way that they're supposed to. Controlling your life is being able to maintain peace of mind when circumstances are not happening the way that you desire them to. Not controlling people or controlling the circumstances. Do you see that? Do you understand that? Where most of us fail at understanding that basic saying, if you want to gain control of your life, let go of it, is because we think controlling your life is controlling the exterior. Controlling your life is controlling the people, controlling the circumstance, controlling the outcome, controlling the details, controlling how this person does this. That's where we get lost and we find ourselves overwhelmed with stress, anxiety, and all these other things. Because we are trying to control factors of our life that are not for you to control. The outcome of your life is not determined by what happens. You can't control what happens, but you can control your response. Jimmy, you hit it right on the head. I am in control without controlling the external variables. In fact, me trying to control the external variables just takes my hand off the reins of the internal variables. It's the internal workings that actually determine the exterior experience. We think if I can change the exterior experience, I'm going to have the internal peace that I desire. That's the trick of your expectation. When your expectation is projected outwardly, you believe that if I can just control the circumstance, if I can control the situation, if I can control this person, if I can control how this person responds and how they react, I'll have the inner peace. And then you realize this trying to control people and circumstances is the actual root of my stress. It's the actual root of my disappointment. Let me show you something else. The serenity prayer is what we're talking about. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. You can't change the outside world, but you can change everything on the inside. We just need the wisdom to know the difference. And you're receiving the wisdom, so now you know the difference. Does that make sense to you all? Empress code, it is absolutely exhausting. That's why they stress to us, if you want to gain control of your life, let it go. Because the understanding is we try so hard to control all the external factors and spend so little time focused on the actual variables that matter. Your insides. And that's why I get on here and scream and holler every single weekday, because I need us all to see that. Come on, Empress Code. When you change the inside, everything on the outside changes on its own. Because the outcome is not determined by what happens. It's determined by your interior response. Spend time. How do you shift from the focus? How do you shift your focus from outcomes to the present? Spend time focusing on the here and the now rather than imagining what should be. Spend time on your internal response and what is the root of your internal response instead of focusing on what externally should be. Excuse me. Because what externally should be is based on your limited scope of information and your limited library of experiences. You don't know enough to tell life how to life in your favor. You don't know enough to tell life how to life in your favor. Let me tell you this. Right now, if I told you to write out in intimate details the ideal best life that you could ever live, I can almost guarantee you're going to shortchange yourself. Because what you're going to write is going to be based on your limited library of experiences and your limited knowledge of what an amazing life could be. There are things about life that we don't know. There are things about how this whole circumstance is going to work out in your favor that you don't have a clue about. That's why you need to let go of trying to control the circumstance, because while you're trying to control the circumstance is trying to take you to somewhere greater than where you're trying to steer it to. But you are resisting the ride to that greater because your expectation tells you you know exactly how it's supposed to turn out. So you might be on a project, wink, wink, you might be working on a project that is literally trying to take you to the very place that is going to give you the ultimate freedom of your life. But because of your past experiences and your expectation of what your life should be, you might be resisting the very thing or the very project that's trying to give you what you truly desire. Because in your mind, I know how this is supposed to go. When life is trying to show you, you have no clue. Get out of my way and let me be the life that you desire. Oftentimes, we are literally the absolute hindrance to what we want is us and our expectation. Because our expectations are so small sometimes that the thing that is happening is so great that you're the one stopping the greatness from coming forth because of your little expectation. The moment that you realize, if I just let go and worry about what's happening in here, all of that is going to work itself out. The moment you realize that, life will start to show you, baby, your expectation was so small, I'm trying to give you so much more. The thing that you thought was for you, the thing that you're holding on to with dear life is so small compared to where life is trying to take you, but you can't go. You know why you can't go? Because you're holding on for dear life. You're like this to the past. And life is like, yo, let that go. I'm trying to take you to greatness, and you're like, nope, this is what I expected my life to be. And if life is not going to happen according to how I expected my life to be, I'm not going nowhere. I'm going to stay right here. At the same time, being extremely disappointed that life isn't meeting said expectation. Kara hit it right on the head. It's always working out for our good. The reason why we don't ultimately see the good is because we've been fighting it. The circumstance is working out for your good. Oftentimes, the reason you don't see the good is because when the circumstance showed up and it didn't look like what you expected, you walked away. There's this analogy that I often use about rain. I love dancing in the rain. Haven't done it in a while, but I love being out in the rain and just getting rained on, right? The analogy that I use to teach people about faith is this. Imagine you were told to stand on that corner. It is going to rain. So you've been standing on this corner. You've been standing on this corner, and you don't see rain. You see some mists. You see some fog, but you don't see rain. So what do? You leave the corner. As soon as you leave the corner, it started pouring down, raining on the corner. Because it didn't meet your expectation, you left before it manifested. Because it didn't show up initially looking like what you envisioned, before it could fully manifest itself for your benefit, you walked away. Or before it could fully manifest itself for your benefit, you got disappointed and stopped expecting it to work out for your good. Oftentimes, we accept the short answer because it is apparent and immediate instead of seeing that the long game is where your benefit is. Sometimes your manifestation got to cook up. So sometimes, there it is. Sometimes you might be expecting gumbo, but the only thing that life gives you is okra in the moment. And because you don't know how life works and you don't know how gumbo works, you just know you want gumbo. You get the okra and you're disappointed. Well, I wanted gumbo. I wanted cooked up gumbo. I wanted gumbo in a pot with sausage and shrimp. Why is life giving me okra? If you just stood on the corner long enough, baby, you're going to get the spices too. If you just stand there long enough, you're going to get the shrimp too. But for you, because you expected a pot with gumbo stew in it already, when you got okra, oh my God, you got this. Why would life give me okra? Oh my God, I'm so depressed. I'm so upset. I'm so disappointed. I'm done. I'm over. I'm finished. It's never going to happen for me. I'm never going to have okra. Just because it didn't meet your expectation, you forfeited the game. Just because it didn't meet your expectation, you forfeited your manifestation. Just because it didn't meet your expectation, you ruined a friendship. Just because it didn't meet your expectation that is derived from your unresolved trauma, you threw those people away. Just because it didn't meet your expectation, you threw away your opportunity at that job that was a damn good job, but because it didn't meet your expectation of what you thought you deserved in the moment that you deserved it, you gave it up. What are those expectations based on, friend? That's what I need you to start asking yourself. What is this expectation based on? Here's a practice for you, shifting from outcomes to the present. Start journaling about how you feel in the moment without thinking ahead or worrying about the outcome. The exercise is spend time focusing on here and now rather than imagining what should be. Being in the here and now instead of envisioning what the future is going to be. Let go of that. If you want to experience a blissful and enjoyable future, stop thinking about it. Focus on now. You know why? Listen to this word puzzle. The reason why you don't focus on the future is because the future will never be. It's a word riddle. The future will never be. Who understands the word riddle? because when you arrived in what you projected as the future, it is the present. The future will never be exactly, Chrissy, because the future is always now. Yesterday, when I envisioned the future of delivering this message, I'm not in the future, I'm in the now. So the future never actually comes. It's a word riddle. It's not a factual, actual thing. It's a word riddle that drives a point, that encourages you. Come on. Tomorrow is yesterday's promise that never came. Another word riddle. I love word riddles, by the way. All right. Another step to releasing the expectation is replacing expectations with curiosity. Here's the mindset shift. Instead of expecting people to behave a certain way, approach every situation and relationship with curiosity. I'm about to drop a good one on you all. When you approach relationships with curiosity instead of expectation, it lessens your false expectations. Why? Part of the reason why we never actually learn people is because we date, we build friendships, we build relationships based on internal neediness. Watch this. Instead of expecting people to behave a certain way, approach situations and relationships with curiosity. When I'm approaching a relationship or a circumstance from a place of neediness, I absolutely have an expectation, because part of my expectation is meeting my need. So when I meet you from a place of neediness within me, even as a friend, as a relationship, I am only assessing how well you can fulfill the need within me. I am not curious as to learn you for who you are. I am only curious in learning the parts of you that can fulfill my need. Does that make sense to you all? Shifting from expectation to curiosity plays that major of a role even in the initial stages of connecting with a person. When we have expectations, we are blinded. Your expectations are your blinders. Why? Because now I haven't done that in so long that I literally forgot why this example is so powerful. Like, the transition between your peripheral and not seeing your peripherals is wild. Maybe that's just me. But anyway, the difference between your expectation and your curiosity is expectation has a need that must be met. Curiosity is just there to learn. When you meet people with curiosity, your discernment is turned on. When you meet people with curiosity, you're learning and discerning. When you meet people with expectation, you're only watching for what is or is not meeting the expectation, which limits your interaction with people. It limits your insight. It limits your discernment. Instead of expecting your partner to say or do something, observe their behavior without judgment or the need for them to meet your internal script, and you will learn so much about people. I'll give you a simple way to do this. When you talk to people, strip yourself of the need to speak. Strip yourself of the need to compare stories. They tell you a great thing about their life. You feel obligated to tell them a great thing about your life that relates to what they said. Stop all that and just start listening. If you listen long enough without a need and without an expectation, they will tell you everything that you need to know, even the questions that you would not have asked based on your expectation and your need. If you just simply listen without expectation and without need, they will tell you more than you would have even asked them to tell you. But you can't do that when you have expectations, because you're only listening to determine if the expectation is being met or not. You're not listening to just learn. Ooh. Y'all ready for this one? Many of us did not meet the person we were dating until they stopped meeting our expectation. Many of us did not meet the person you were married to until they stopped meeting your expectation. Many of us did not know the friends that we had in our circle until they stopped meeting our expectation. Why? Because as long as they were meeting your expectation and fulfilling your need, you had no desire to learn all the other aspects of who they were. You were only concerned with the parts of them that were meeting your needs and meeting your expectation. The moment they stop meeting those expectations, it's like you snap out of a stupor. Listen to me. Most of us that have been in relationships, and then all of a sudden you're like, what am I doing here? That's what happened. While they were meeting your expectation, you were good. You were over the hills. You were in love. Oh my God, this is so beautiful. I can't believe I found you. The moment they stop meeting your expectation, you're like, who the hell is this person? How did you get here? The moment they stop meeting your expectation, it's like you snap out of a dream. How did I, what, huh? And now you're lost. You're confused. Yeah. That's because as long as they were meeting your expectation, you didn't care to discern the rest of them. You didn't care to learn the rest of them. The moment those expectations stop being met, now you're watching and seeing who this person is. You're seeing the way that they do things, the way that they deal with things, and you're like, no way, absolutely not. That's because you were driven by your need and your expectations. That's why this is so important. It's not you, it's me. I would say so. Yes, generally that is always the truth. Generally, it's always the truth. However, I'll add this caveat. When people normally use that, they're not trying to tell you the truth. Generally, it's not you, it's me, it's the truth. Except for when people say it to you. It's only true when you recognize that towards your own healing. It's not you, it's me. I'm going to be accountable. That's when it's true. When somebody is saying it towards you, oh no, they're not. They're not being truthful. They're trying to obfuscate and hide from the accountability of what's happening. But let's keep building. All right. How do we see gratitude as a tool? So I want you to do this. In transitioning from expectations to just letting go and letting life as it should. Begin a daily practice of gratitude for what you don't know and for what the unexpected is. Infinite Spirit, I just express gratitude for I express gratitude today for all the things that will happen that I am not aware of. I express gratitude for all the things that I do not expect to happen today, but I know that everything is happening for my good. So no matter how things may show up in my life, I am grateful. Come on. Y'all don't understand how the power of real gratitude and how it is connected to your real understanding that everything is happening for your good. This goes back to the concept that I shared about dancing in the rain. The reason I love dancing in the rain, I did not mean just physically dancing in the rain. I meant dancing in the rain of circumstances and situations not happening the way that they're supposed to in my life. Whenever I see things going left, I start dancing. Why? I'm celebrating the unexpected. I'll give you all a personal foundation of one of my affirmations. Whenever the thing that I am manifesting shows up outside of how I visualized it, I dance. You know why? Because my presumption is the only reason this is showing up outside of how I visualized it as a part of my manifestation is because it's happening better than I visualized it. I don't assume the reason it showed up different than how I visualized it is because it's not going to happen. I don't assume that it's going to happen less than what I expected. No, I automatically, in my mind, in my spirit, I assume, oh, let's dance about this. Hey, the book deal, we didn't get the first publisher. The first publisher that we pitched the book to, they didn't bite. I start dancing. Well, Kohn, why are you dancing? The publishers didn't pick up our book. Because the publisher that will pick up our book is going to do better for us. Join me in dancing. The expectation is not that because I visualized a specific publisher, now I need that specific publisher to come through. No, the expectation is that the book is going to get picked up by a publisher. That's it. So when the first publisher says, matter of fact, let me fix it for you. The expectation is that the book is going to get picked up by the best publisher that best fits this situation. So when the first publisher said, no, let's party, they just saved us the wrong publishing relationship. So when you reject me, I celebrate. Why? Because you just saved me the heartache of something that wasn't for me. Because I don't have an expectation that it's specifically you that's for me, but I have an expectation that the right person for me will come into my life. So when the wrong person rejects me, I celebrate. Why? You just saved me the headache of having to deal with someone that isn't the right person. You see the shift? I don't need to control the circumstance. The only thing that I need to control is internally how I feel about the circumstance. Why? Because the outcome of my life is not determined by the circumstance. It's determined by my response. So rather than worrying about trying to control the circumstance, I focus on my response. So your daily practice of gratitude for the unexpected it becomes a lifestyle. If I say I expected X, Y, and Z to happen, but LMNOP happened, I'm not mad. Oh my God, the wrong letters showed up. Nah, I'm celebrating. I'm dancing in the rain. Why are you dancing? We were expecting these letters to show up, but these letters, what is wrong with you? You're trying to control the circumstances. I don't control the circumstances. I control my response. And my response is to dance in the rain with gratitude. Why? Because I know that everything is happening for my good. So even though we expected X, Y, and Z, LMNOP showed up, that's good for us. That's good for us. Chill. Why are you stressing when the situation is actually working out better than your expectation? Because you're married to your expectation. You're married to trying to control the circumstance. You're married to trying to control people. You want people to love you the way that they should love you when that's not the person for you. If you stop trying to control people and just let go, the person that will genuinely love you will find you. If you, there it is right there. If you stop trying to change the wrong people into the right people will find their way into your life. If you stop trying to change the wrong people into the right people, you will actually get a chance to meet the right people. If you stop trying to control everything and just let it go, it will happen in your best interest as life sees fit. Here's one thing that I trust more than I trust myself. I trust Source more than I trust me. I trust the infinite possibilities of things working out for my good more than I trust my limited library of experiences that I can build my expectation on. Let me say that again. I trust the infinite possibilities of things working out for my good more than I trust the limited library of experiences that I can build my expectations from. So therefore, when something shows up in my life and it doesn't meet my expectation, I don't go crazy. Because I know my expectation is based on my limited library of experiences. But there is an infinity of ways that this situation can work out for my good that I don't know. But I trust that it's going to work out for my good. So I trust that one of those infinite ways is what's happening right now. So I'm dancing in the rain. Y'all might think I'm crazy. Well, Coach, this isn't happening the way you said it would. Yes, it is. I'm not attached to the specifics. I'm just attached to the outcome being in my favor. Because most of the times, the way I expected it to is way less than what's actually going to happen. It's like you cheating yourself. So that act or that practicing gratitude for the unexpected is gratitude for the favorable outcome that I have not seen and I do not expect. Well, that I have not seen. I expect the favorable outcome. So again, it's gratitude for the favorable outcome that I have not seen. I'm dancing in the rain. Now, if you think about what this concept is, there's two spiritual ways to embrace this concept. There is faith without works is dead. And then there's manifestation. So let me address my traditional believers and talk about faith real quick and why this dancing in the rain aligns perfectly with your belief about faith. If I have faith that this thing is going to work out for me and work out for my good, when something shows up that does not seem like it's happening for my good, my expectation by faith is not for me to turn around and go, well, it's not going to happen. Well, I guess that's not the case. No, my expectation based on faith is even in the midst of it looking like it is contrary to what I am praying for, I still believe it's going to happen. And now the works of my faith is I'm going to dance in the rain. I'm going to not only dance in the rain, but I'm going to maintain a sense of peace about my life. That is the work. The work in your faith is not always that you have to physically go do something. Sometimes the working of your faith is simply you standing on business in the midst of things not seeming like they're going to happen. That's sometimes all the work that is required for your faith to be worked. Now let's talk about manifestation. There are two aspects of manifestation that hinders most people from actually seeing their manifestation all the way through. Those two aspects are expectations and acceptance. So, one of the most critical part of manifestation, and I teach this to my clients, is visualization. Visualization is your ability to not only see the thing that you're trying to manifest, but visualization is also experiencing it through your visualization to a point where you feel the emotions that you will feel if the thing was happening right now. Does that make sense to you all? I just need some ones and then I'll keep going. Okay. Now, that being the case, that requires you to see it in intimate details. That seeing it in intimate details develops an expectation. So now, as a part of my manifestation, I've already visualized this thing in intimate details so that I could feel the emotions that I will feel when it is fully manifested. Out of that was developed an expectation. So how do I work through my manifestation when I do have this expectation? Taking the same advice that I've been giving you this entire chat. Let go. So let me show you how this works in manifestation. Manifestation, after you've had this visualization and you have developed the emotion, you've experienced the emotion that you would feel if the thing came to pass. Once you have done that and you have the emotion and it is embedded in your subconscious mind, you let go of the outcome. And you only hold on to that it is going to happen according to your best interest. Even though you are required to visualize the intimate details in order for you to feel the emotional experience, once you have conquered or once you have achieved the emotional experience, which then embeds it in your subconscious mind, you let go of the outcome. You let go of those details that you visualized. And you let life bring it to you the way that life sees best fit to do so. Does that make sense to you all? Awesome. Awesome. All right, let's do some affirmations, some final reflections, and then we'll get out of here. We actually made good time today. The camera is on 2%, so our YouTube audience is going to lose. They're going to lose video feed here in just a minute. So before you lose video feed for our YouTube audience, I'm not going to shut you guys out because this is an important part of the message. If within the 2 hours and 30-minute mark and you're watching this on YouTube and the video feed goes out, we're still going to continue and complete this message. So the audio feed is still going to be available. So do not click away when we lose video because we're going to end and complete this message. Let's get to it. All right. Final reflections and affirmations. Let me give you all the reflection questions first, and then we'll do the affirmations, and then I'll give you my closing message, and we can do that in about 10 minutes. All right, the reflection questions are as follows. What are the expectations of people and circumstances you've been holding on to that have been causing you pain? What are the expectations of people and circumstances you've been holding on to that have been causing you pain? This is your life, your reality. Be honest with yourself. Do that reflection and then journal this for yourself. Okay? So stay true in love says disappointment. Stay true in love. I want you to look at it from this perspective. I expect my husband to do X, Y, and Z, and the fact that he doesn't do it leads to my disappointment. I expect my boss to not be an asshole, and the fact that he shows up every day to be an asshole, it causes me distress and it causes me anxiety at work. I mean those types of situations and circumstances that we have expectations on, because that's the core. When you can find those things and you can start undoing those things, you're going to see an immense improvement in the quality of your life. Work is always one of those places, yes. Work is always one of those places, and that's why I always use it as an easy example, all right? So what are the expectations of people or circumstances you've been holding on to that has been causing you pain? This goes into your relationships with your children, your spouse, your family. We expect things of people based on our own unresolved trauma that has developed needs within us or a sense of neediness. What are those things? Second one, how can you begin releasing the need to control people or outcomes in your life? Find it. Once you find those areas, let go. Let go. All right? How can you begin releasing the need to control people or outcomes in your life? And we're going to be losing the feed here for our YouTube audience in any second now. But we're still going to give you the audio. Stay tuned, and the video will complete on this message, okay? And then lastly, what would it feel like to approach life? Wait, I think I don't want to do all that. I just realized I could probably change the battery on the camera, but I don't want to do all that. Let's keep moving. All right, the third reflection question. What would it feel like to approach life with openness and curiosity instead of your rigid expectations? What would it feel like to approach life with openness and curiosity instead of your rigid expectations? We really could have broke this into a 2-part lesson, but we were having so much fun and the information was so powerful that I probably couldn't have broke away if I wanted to. All right. Let's get to these affirmations really quick, and then we'll do the closing message. And hopefully we may be able to squeeze it in and get the whole message in. All right, so here's the affirmations. And here's what I'll do for the TikTok audience. Let me get through all of this for our YouTube audience, and then I'll come back and slow it down for you all, and we can actually complete. But I think I may be able to get this done while the feed is still good. All right, here are our affirmations. I release the need to control people and outcomes, trusting that life will unfold for my highest good. Number 2, I embrace the present moment and welcome the unexpected with curiosity and gratitude. Number 3, I free myself from the pain of unmet expectations, and I live authentically in the here and the now. In closing, our greatest freedom comes from when we let go of the need to control life and others. And we see that expectations are the invisible traps we set for ourselves. And by releasing them, we open ourselves to a life of joy, peace, and authenticity. The journey of self-love is one where we learn to be present, trust the process, and find joy in the unexpected. In closing, I'll say this. I'll quote again the great Earl Simmons and say, expect people to be who they are. I love you all. We thank you for joining this broadcast and being a part of another episode of Unpacking. Please do like and subscribe to the page, as well as turn on your notification bell so that you're notified when we release new content. As always, happy healing.